Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. While we're waiting around, if you want to just throw in the chat, we're hoping you use the chat quite a bit today. What you want to throw in the chat, where you are in the world. Sometimes we get people from interesting locations. We've had people in our workshops from Africa, from South America, all over Asia, Canada certainly, but I don't know how happy people are with us these days here in the U.S., so I'm not sure.
You want to talk about that?
Not sure anybody from any different country is going to be here. Probably not.
I have the hook nearby, Tarks, just to get them off camera there. Hi, everybody. A lot of good familiar faces out here, or familiar names, I should say. Thanks for joining us. A lot of new people, too. Thanks for checking in. This should be an exciting afternoon.
We're just going to let people flow in still. They're all out in the waiting room. Kind of come on in, have a seat. Put in the chat there where in the world you're from. Where you logging in from? Cindy and I and Zach, the Crescenzo team, are in Chicago. I believe Tarek is either in Lisbon or Lebanon. One of the two.
The two places that start with the letter L. That's fantastic. I would have gone Louisville, but it's not that either. I'm actually in Portugal, but not Lisbon.
Oh, okay.
So exciting. All right. It is 12:01. We'll just give it a couple more seconds here to let people file in.
I'm not sure they actually can't chat because we're using the Q&A. Yeah.
Okay. I see. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining. As usual, he's got a lot of great commentary. All right. Yes. Thanks for giving us the heads up about the chat being disabled. So throughout the session, if you just want to definitely use this Q&A section, I'll keep an eye on it as we go through so we can make sure that we can talk throughout the whole thing. Throw your questions in there. I'm really more than happy to interrupt either Steve or Tarek, for that matter. Zach, not so much, but everybody else, I'm happy to interrupt, and we can ask questions at any time.
How do I get the Q&A?
You can interrupt me if you want, Cindy.
Thanks.
Not in real life.
Well, let's kick this off because there's a lot that we want to cover. So welcome to our first IC Thought Leadership webinar series. I couldn't be happier to be doing this with two of my favorite people. I guess now three, Zach, you're included by DNA standards. Steve and Cindy, I love them. I've worked with them for a long time. I've known them for a long time. They're fantastic and probably the best presenters I've seen in this topic, and maybe any topic. They can pick anything, they're going to be great. So we got a great topic for you. We want to go to the next slide. I like starting with who we are. So if you haven't met me, I'm Tarek. I'm the founder and CEO of Cerkl, a nerd. We offer an IC platform, kind of interject bits and pieces of that to match what Steve and Cindy are saying throughout this presentation. So hopefully you'll find it beneficial. Turn it over to Steve, Cindy, Zach.
Yeah, so we are the three-headed monster of Crescenzo Communications. We started the company. I started it 28 years ago.
What did you start?
Yeah, and Cindy joined 8 years after that, or 6 years after that, something like that. And Zach joined 3 months ago. So he's the latest member of the team, and we are Crescenzo Communications. And if you're wondering right now, oh my God, is he sick? Does he have some disease? He's bloated. Look at that picture, and now look at him now. No, I've always been this fat. That picture is courtesy of AI, which I highly recommend.
What are you talking about? You look like that.
It's fantastic. All right, let's jump into why are people attending this? So I always ask the question, how will these people be smarter at the end of this webinar than they are right now? Steve, Cindy, do you want to field to that one?
Yeah, we will. And Cindy and I, and Zach now, but Cindy and I for the last 20 years together, 28 years, we've been in the employee communication space as consultants, coaches, counselors, workshop leaders, conference speakers We are lucky enough to go all over the world, work with some of the biggest, best companies, some of the coolest companies, some of the people doing really cool stuff in the world. And we kind of burrow our way in there. And we do full communication assessments, which involves research and measurement and vehicle analysis and focus groups and surveys and all that good stuff. Do a lot of coaching, doing a lot of consulting. And you know what we try to do is when we go in there is just talk a little bit about, you know, what are we doing as employee communications people? How do we want to be order takers? Do we just want to be, okay, give us something to do and we'll put it on the internet. Give us something to do and we'll put it over here. We're like the company Kinko's. Do we want to do that? Or do we want to do something else? Do we want to be strategic counselors? Do we want to be creative? Do we want to like break the mold? Do we want to just do same old corporate stuff? Check the box. Cindy calls it the communication illusion. Hey, you got the email out. Congratulations. Nobody read it. Nobody opened it. Nobody acted on it. But you did it. You got your safety story on the intranet. Or do you want to make a difference in your organization? Do you want to have the respect of leadership? Do you want to have people that actually pay attention to what you're doing? That's what this workshop's all about. Cindy and I have developed a sort of a 5-step system for doing this. And it's kind of critical that you do all 5. If you take one out, it's like a 5-legged stool. The stool falls. So you kind of got to do all 5. Anything to add to that before I'm going to kick it over to Cindy, who's going to do the first step, because it's basically
Let's jump in.
gather your data. Well, we'll just get into it. It's the 5 steps. I'll let Cindy talk about the first one.
Well, anyone who has seen me speak before, if you have seen me speak, you know that data is my passion. I'm the numbers geek in the crowd. I've never seen a successful communication plan that is written or created in a vacuum. It just doesn't exist. The only way we could be successful communicators is if we actually have data at our hands so that we know our audiences inside and out. We know what makes them tick. We know where to find them. We know what content is meaningful to them. So, you know, I have hours and hours of content on data, how to collect it, whether it's qualitative, whether it's quantitative. I've got it all, but we've only got a small amount of time today. So we're going to focus on the most popular, which is surveys.
Either one of these 5 steps is a full day workshop. We can do a full day on, and we do a full day on each one of these 5. We want to hit the highlights today to give you some really actionable stuff, practical stuff that you can use, and have a conversation with you as well. So use that Q&A, get us talking.
Yep. And so if you want to flip the slide there, when we think about surveys out there, you know, and actually this goes with any kind of qualitative question as well. Your data is only going to be good as the questions that you ask. And sometimes we find ourselves in this churn, right? We're on deadline, we're on timelines. So many of us have limited resources and we're trying to do so much on our own or with a small team. Sometimes we forget to put the thought behind our surveys, our questions, how we ask questions, because I'm telling you, garbage in, garbage out, right? So you really have to think about, how am I asking this question? Is it specific enough? No matter who sees this question, will they interpret it the same way that I intended? That's what we want to get to. So if you flip to the next screen, Steve, I just wanted to share with you guys one of my favorite questions. If we're going to go out there and collect data, let's make sure we've got these power questions in place so you can actually do something with it when the data comes back. This is one of my favorite things to do. One of the things that we all struggle with is, are we communicating the right stuff? Do people feel like they're getting what they need to feel connected, to feel informed in the organization, no matter where they are? So one of the questions that I usually always try to find space for whenever we do a communication audit for anybody is, we want to find out, number one, are we communicating the right things? So to the very left there, you'll see buckets of content that are typical of a corporate communicator, right? Things that we need to communicate on a consistent basis in order to make people feel connected. You can either take that verbatim and use it for yourselves. You can customize it according to the content buckets that you specifically create, but you want to make that list on the left-hand side connect to whatever content that you're consistently creating. The next 2 fields is that you set up your survey so that, number one, people can give you their attitude of agreement about how important is this topic to you, and you rate it from not important at all to very important. And then the following, the very last column is, how satisfied are you with the content you're currently getting in this bucket? So it's a beautiful thing because for every single content bucket that you list there, you can easily see where is this on the importance level for each audience segment. After this, you definitely want to slice and dice it a little bit more and see who's responding to it. And then how well do they perceive the content that they're getting within that bucket? If you go to the next slide, this is the graphic that you're going to get when you pump this out to your analytics in the back end, or maybe you export it to Excel, whatever the case may be. In the best scenario, our blue bar and our pink bar are completely equal. If not, the pink bar is higher than the blue bar. When we see that the blue bar is higher than the pink bar, at a glance, I can easily see I've got content issues with leadership updates and employee stories. At a glance, the most powerful data when you report it back gives you that main message, that main aha moment, as soon as you look at the graphic that you create for that data. This tells a story. We've got to dig into those leadership updates, and we got to dig into those employee stories. Maybe people aren't finding it. Maybe it's the way that we write about it. Maybe we don't have enough content on it, but this tells me I got to dig down a little deeper into these content buckets and figure out what the issue is.
Maybe do some focus groups.
Maybe you do some focus groups at that point. Exactly right. So go ahead. After the fact, the one thing I see over and over, communicators, we've got to get better at communicating what we've learned from any kind of data. Whether, I don't care if it's an interview or a set of interviews that you've done with stakeholders, executives, focus groups, surveys, what you're learning in your social spaces internally, what people are putting in comment sections. We've got to start to communicate what we've learned from all of this stuff. I hear all the time about survey fatigue, no one responds. There is something to survey fatigue, of course. Most of the time, the issue is that we keep asking people for their opinion, and then we never tell them what we did with it. We never tell them what we learned or how it's going to change what we do going forward. And the best ways that you can do this, we're all storytellers at heart. At the end of the day, that's what we're all here to do, is tell stories within our organization. Do the same thing with your data. Make sure when it comes back to whoever you're reporting it out to, it's just not a slew of charts and graphics, right? If you click to the next slide, Steve, you're going to see how I love to treat it. I usually ask myself, take a step back from that survey and ask myself, what are the top 3 to 5 things I learned because I did this survey? And then I love to create an infographic around it of some sort, right? So here we have 3 main messages that I got from this particular survey that I did with a client. And what was the highlight of it? You can pull in your actual data that backs up the finding. I love to put in context with some of the open-ended questions that we get. But again, I'm a big fan of communications at a glance, especially when you're distributing it to internal clients or to your leadership. Concise is something that always will capture attention, right? You have a better chance of people seeing your messages when the content is concise. So this is a much better way to kind of talk about what you've learned, tell the story about what you've learned instead of a smattering of Excel charts and graphics.
Yeah, and by the way, step 4 in this process is do a channel audit on yourself, because number one here, the number one communication effectiveness is suffering from the lack of one source of truth. That's happening everywhere as everybody flips on Teams and Employee Viva Engage and all the other stuff that we have access to now, which I think Tara can talk to as well. People are just don't know where to go. They don't know where to go anymore. And when they don't know where to go, they just don't go anywhere. You go to the internet homepage, or am I going to get in an email? Am I going to go to Teams? Am I going to go to this? That's happening every client we have.
Yep, exactly.
So I've actually heard a term called channel anxiety. That employees are saying that they feel like they have to go everywhere because they're worried they're going to miss something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
you feel overloaded.
Oftentimes it's the same information. So
exactly. So true, Tar.
It's real. All right, so I'll jump in and kind of back up what Steve and Cindy are saying. We have a platform called Broadcast, but kind of where we shine, and I'm a nerd. I'm a software engineer.
We'll back that up too.
Yeah, we can back that up.
I was hoping you would oppose that.
No. We
We
prefer the term bedwetter, but go ahead.
That went south very quickly. So a lot of what Steve and Cindy are saying, we don't want you spending time on. it's communicators want to create great content fundamentally, right? They want people to be informed and engaged with what is going on within their organization. Collecting data is unbelievably important. If you want to have that strategic purview, if you want to be seen as strategic, like a lot of communicators were during COVID, how do we get that back? It all starts with data. So just give you some highlights, things like how are people engaging by any metric, where they work, who they report to, how long they've been there. Any metric, you can see engagement. If you can go to the next slide. And this is all tracked for you automatically across channels. So you don't have to pull and create a spreadsheet and copy and paste and go to your webmaster internally about send me the Google Analytics of who's hitting our intranet. All of that goes away for you. You can create, next slide, real dashboards that you can share with leadership. So they don't even have to wait for a PowerPoint or Google Slides if you're more adventurous. They can just click a link and it's updated in real time based on the metrics that matter to your organization. So, and again, we just feel so strongly that great comms starts with great data. Understanding what the organization wants, what they need, what's resonating, what's not resonating is just as important. But all this is leading to a foundation for how you position yourself to be more strategic to the organization, and it all starts with data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, Cindy said she was the data nerd. Turk said he's a nerd. I'm not a nerd. I'm a cool kid. But my life is so much better with software, the new software, and certainly we love broadcast. But the new software, the new technology available to communicators gives you the metrics.
Gold.
We used to struggle to get one. 20 years ago, there was none of this. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, there was none of this. Now, if you have the right tool in place, like a broadcaster, whatever you might choose, whatever you might have, you get the metrics. But then you got to know what to do with them. And a lot of what you're going to find out when you do data, when you do stop communicating in a vacuum, you're going to find out that your content sucks. Because you're writing for the approver and not the end user, because you're dealing with approval processes that just choke the life out of you. You're dealing with a lot of complicated topics. You're dealing with boring topics. Show of hands real quick, if you can do it in the webinar. How many people out there have been bored by something that you're writing? Now keep your hand up if you've been bored by something that you're writing as you're actually writing it. You know, that's the world of corporate communication. We're not writing about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We're writing about new initiatives and safety and wellness and new executives. And, you know, it's not the sexiest stuff in the world. Our job, though, is to make the important interesting. And I have a slide on that later. But again, we do a whole 2-day masterclass on content alone. So we're not going to get into much of it today, but we wanted to talk about a couple of important things, the two most important. There's 2 ways that you can improve your content. One is to tell better stories. And that means getting people involved, because you really can't tell a story without people. And ideally, the people closest to the work, not the higher ups, not the people that sit up on Mount Olympus and hurl their memos down on people. You want to tell the people closest to the work, because that's where you'll find the passion, the pride, the innovation, you know, all the stuff we talk about, the values, all the stuff we talk about in a big picture. That stuff's happening down there in the factory and the nursing floor and things like that. And the second way, and it's sort of a shift, it's a different way, is you've got to shorten everything. You got to write for mobile and communication at a glance, and it's not always easy to do. So we're going to talk about both of those. When it comes down to it, this is, you know, we have so many jobs as communicators. The one job we have, though, is to make the important interesting. Safety is not an interesting topic. But if you work for a utility or you work for a hospital, if you work in a manufacturing environment, safety dominates everything. And we know companies that start every meeting with a safety minute. It's boring. We've got to make it interesting. That's our job. And the way to do that is to avoid talking about what we call the 4 deadly P's: programs, policies, products, and procedures. I mean, think about it. That's what we write about. You can put almost everything we do into one of those categories, but they're all boring. The way to do it is we have to talk about it. That's our beat. That's what we write about, create content about. But we don't talk about it from that perspective. We talk about it from the perspective of people. How do those 4 deadly P's affect people? You know, if it's a product story, who created that product? Who's benefiting from that product? If it's a process, what does that process mean to people that are working on it? I mean, you've got to find a way to get people involved. And I'm telling you, you know, we do a lot of work with the Mayo Clinic. And Hoyt Finnemore was the editor there for 20 years. We've been friends for 20 years. He tracks his metrics. He tracks his data. Cindy and him are friends. They're both like that. They're both data people. Weird, like Dungeons and Dragons people.
There's more of us than you know.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's like The Walking Dead. But Hoyt checks every metric and everything. When he puts a person in a story, it takes more time to go find that person and do person or people. His metrics double, triple, quadruple. People want to read about other people. They don't want to, you know, it doesn't have to be long or anything, but they want to read about people. And in my writing workshops, which again could be a full 2 days, I love to talk about the storytelling lead. If you pick up the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, I'm a journalism major, and you learn in J school that this what they call the anecdotal lead, the storytelling lead, the people lead, the feature lead, whatever you want to call it. The Wall Street Journal has mastered it. If you ever read the Wall Street Journal, if they do a feature story, 9 times out of 10, they're going to follow this exact formula, which is perfect for corporate communications because it's built to take a big picture topic like the economy and bring it down to one person. How, you know, the economy is a story, right? The economy's tanking because of tariffs, let's say. Not tariffs. The economy's tanking, but you could start by saying the economy's tanking and do a news lead. Or you could say, John so-and-so tried to sell a pickup truck for $3,000 more than it was worth yesterday. And you start with a person, you give a little background, then you quote that person, and then you say, that's a bigger picture, it's the economy, and that's what the story is really about. Well, that's how you do safety and wellness and initiatives. You start with people. Paragraph 1, you meet a person. You meet the guy who can't sell his truck. Paragraph 2, more detail. Paragraph 3 is always a quote. This is a formula. You can apply this to any corporate story. Paragraph 4 is the nut graph. They call it the nut graph, which is that's where you sum everything up and show you what the story is really about. Here's a great example of how one of our favorite clients, W.L. Gore, they went through our workshops, started using this formula, and this is a boring topic. This is what we write about. This is our beat. They're an old company. They've been around forever. One of their divisions, their industrial dry filtration business, turned 50 years old. Woo! I mean, right? I mean, you know, it's just celebrate. It's just, you know, there's a real boring way to do it. Talk to the head of the division, do a real lame quote, and do maybe a timeline. The creative way would be to do a timeline of what's happened in the last 50 years. Well, they put that anecdotal lead into place, and they say, you know, very good headline, breath of fresh air. I'm not crazy about the word celebrates. We celebrate far too many things in the corporate world. We celebrate Nurses Week. We celebrate this. We celebrate that. I would take the word celebrates out of your headlines, but it's not bad. 50 years of business and breakthroughs. I like that. That's alliterative. The year marks a milestone anniversary, not only for our enterprise, but also for one of our longest running businesses. Learn how Gore's industrial dry filtration business revolutionized. Now, this could be really boring, but look how they start. First of all, I talk about in my writing workshops, write a fast first sentence. Fast first sentence and then white space so the sentence stands out. Look at this great first sentence. Longtime associate Chris Palazzi remembers when his children first asked him what he did for a living. That is a great, right away we get a person. Long time, yeah, we're all parents. Most of us are parents. We remember when people ask us what we did for a living. That's paragraph 1, we meet Chris. Paragraph 2, this is straight out of the formula. A little more info. He has spent his entire Gore career in industrial dry filtration, IDF, a business that develops membrane-based filters that capture particulate matter emitted from industrial plants. But how do you explain that line of work to young kids? That's the second paragraph. Third paragraph, a great short quote. I told them that I helped clean the air, Chris recalls. It's a simple explanation that actually captures the business's impact in the world. And then you get to the nut graph. This could have led the story. You could have led with this. As Gore's largest filtration business, IDF develops filters for the metals, minerals, and energy industries that collect pollutants down to the subbank. You could have started with that. It's boring. It's dead. It's dull. This will draw more people in. And then you get another guy. You get more people. They went out and they talked to a guy who started there at the beginning in the 70s, who was there at the beginning of this thing. And he talks about what life was like back then. Then they do kind of a weak subhead, which I would have worked with them to improve. Then they quote somebody else. Then they talk to the leader. That's a flip. You don't quote the leader first. You quote the people closest to the work first. And then say there's probably not a country in the world our filters haven't ended up in some way or form. This is really, really great storytelling and great content.
Yeah, and if I can jump in here too, and this might be a good
Sure.
transition into what we're talking about next. I agree with you. It's a great story. It's got, a strong headline. It's got great quotes. It brings people in. The one critique that I have with it here is that, with the way that it's packaged, it's a little bit intimidating to read, especially if I was going to be reading it on a phone. You got to think, the younger generations, people like myself that have been in the workforce now for a couple of years, especially those that are going to be coming into the workforce, everyone reads everything off their phones nowadays. So I think it's really important to have a mobile first strategy when it comes to creating your content. It's almost just as important as the actual content itself nowadays. With this specific example, I think, the way that it's packaged is not really great for a computer or mobile. But a lot of times if you're creating content for mobile, it'll be easy to read on a computer as well. But this one looks like it might be a print publication or newspaper, something like that.
Yeah, you exactly nailed it. You're right on the money with that. And it was a print publication. They did put it online, but they put it on there as a PDF, which is
Ugh.
deadly.
Yeah, it
deadly.
just looks old school, right
Yeah.
at a glance. That's true.
Zach, I mean, the younger generation, they get information on their phone. When Zach first joined the company and he was involved in a couple of audits we did, he's like, wow, they rely a lot on long emails and getting people to the intranet to read longer form
What's
content.
this email thing?
Yeah, what is it? He doesn't even like email.
Scary,
If I send him a three-line text, he's text back, Dad, stop writing novels.
If only they were only 3 lines.
Yeah, well, that's true. Zach is exactly right. You got to be mobile first, and then assume, and that comes down to packaging. We're not just writers anymore. We got to think like designers. What's it going to look like when people look at it? Zach is right. As good as this is, it's intimidating as hell. It looks like a long chore here. It looks like a long road to hoe.
Yeah.
So we have to think about the packaging. Have to think about mobile first, because even if it's not on mobile, it'll still look good. As Zach said, it'll still look good on a computer screen. And that's why the second tip, and you got to have both of these. You got to have this, you got to be able to write those people stories and package them in a way that they don't look so intimidating. And then you got to be able to create content snapshots. And you got to have both talents. You got to have both clubs in the bag. You got to have both tools in the toolbox. You got to have both spatulas in the kitchen.
I think we got it.
Wait, keep going. I don't
Okay.
quite understand.
You got to be able to do both things. Shut up, Tara.
About that conciseness. Where do we go back?
This is one of our favorite clients. We're doing a workshop with them again next week. It'll be our 5th workshop with them. Maersk out of Copenhagen, huge, big shipping company. They're really good at this. Look at it, myth and fact. You could write a story about how optimizing carrier choices is daunting, or you do, look at that short little text block, myth and fact, content snapshots. What is the true scale of our new ocean-going fleet? Look, there's probably, 15 words, 20 words up there. And then you get 190,000 tons. But look, it can carry the weight up to 29,000 African elephants. Talk about a snapshot. Talk about burning something into someone's brain. In 8 seconds, you can look at this and realize how big their damn ships are and what they can carry all over the world. Yeah. That is communication at a glance. This is a really great example. We have a great colleague from the UK, Matt Frost. And he is IC Partners. And he is the best benefits communicator, best HR communicator, best people engagement experience communicator we know. And he has mastered this communication at a glance, because the stuff he communicates is crazy important. It's benefits, stuff that really affects people's lives. You've got to get people to pay attention. So look at it. This is an article. Doesn't look like an article, right? But it's an article. It's a content snapshot about a new benefit they announced a new cancer screening benefit. So first of all, they have a really good headline up there. We have special and unique benefits here, very conversational. Then you get the article, which is about 40 words. That just really quickly explains My Cancer Risk is an online cancer risk assessment tool that supports really good. You get that, and then you go right to an infographic. You're moving left to right here. 800 people were checked, 485 checks completed free of charge. And then they add the person. See, this is how you can still do number 1 and get people involved. Look at this fantastic quote. Ooh, I thought I highlighted it. Look at this fantastic quote. You got the short text, the numbers, and then listen to this. We've all seen and heard the signs of what to look for when checking for skin cancer. However, even with this knowledge, I managed to completely miss the basal cell carcinoma that has been living right on my face. That's awesome. It's been living right on my face. That's not a corporate quote. She's not, it wasn't optimizing or leveraging her face. It was living right on her face. I can't praise the check center enough. We are not skin specialists there. That is a content snapshot. That's what we have to get to. It kind of it blends the both. It's got the people focus and the mobile friendly stuff that Zach talked about. When it comes to this sort of thing, I think this is I just gave you the formula for the anecdotal lead. This is the other formula. What, so what, now what? I've had so many thousands of people over the years tell me, Steve, that's the one slide that I printed out and I put up on my cubicle. What, so what, now what? What do you want them to know? Why should they care? And what do you want them to do? Look at this great example from Sandia Labs. We did a lot of work with them. We're still working with them. And they were trying to foster and encourage more innovation in the workplace. And they were sending messages from those three guys at the bottom. Those are the executives. And they were sending messages. They were longer form. And, they're trying to get this initiative. It's a corporate initiative. One of the deadly P's, really. It starts with an I. Called Accelerate Innovation. And they were trying this and trying that. And then they went to this content snapshot model, communication at a glance. And here's the what. Hey, we want you to share your stories. So what? Why does it matter? Look at the headlines. What? So what? And then now what? Here's where to submit your stories. Once they started doing this, and it was up in TVs, and it was, on the internet, once they started doing it, content snapshots, they saw participation in this initiative grow and grow and grow. We talked to Amy Treese, she was one of our, we talked to her, and she said, well, yeah, once we started doing this kind of stuff, we started seeing improvement. We started seeing numbers go up, which is awesome. All right, number 3.
Jump in real quick
sure,
before we
go
get
ahead.
to number 3. Hi. Welcome to the show. So one of the biggest things that we've heard from communicators is that I would love to write Pulitzer-winning content. I don't have time.
Yeah.
So when we hear that, we're always like, that's where technology can be really assistive to you. So we think about analytics, we've talked about that, and we will talk about publishing to different channels and how much time that takes. So if you can use technology to be your friend here, it frees them up to do what they really love, which is create great content. So that's a plug for the nerds.
All right, I know you are exactly right, Tara.
The nerds feel it.
It. There's two things, for years, if you want to do that cancer screening one, that means you got to go find that woman and actually talk to her, because you got to get that living on my face quote. That takes time. It's easier to just check a box and write about it. Hey, this is available. Go do it.
Right.
Well, that's just not nearly as compelling. You're not going to have enough, it draws many people in, but it takes time. The beautiful thing is with technology, like broadcast, plus AI, which we're teaching full day workshops on now, all of a sudden there's no excuses anymore. You can be way more efficient with those two things, that you do have time to go talk to people, which is what we should be doing 70 to 80% of the time.
Yeah, and I'd love to add a third thing in there to help you save time, and that's we have to have a system in place to prioritize our content, right? We have been in this business long enough to know a day in the life of a communicator is bananas, right? You've got a million requests, it seems, every single day, putting out fires. The whole point of this conversation today is to really talk about how to shift from that reactive state of communication to more of a proactive, creative state, along with using that technology to help speed things up, along with understanding ways to write content so that people can get through it quick and fast. The other part of that is you've got to have the strategies in place to get your content organized and through your editorial process in a fast and efficient way. So if you want to keep going there, Steve, the 3 bucket system is something that we have taught for a while now, because it just is simple and it works, right? And the key to being more proactive is really understanding what you should not be doing. And that's what we call the pass bucket. And the pass bucket, we've all been there. Somehow, some way, something has landed in our lap. I don't know. We're in charge of this specific newsletter. I'm not really sure why. We've always done it this way, right? We always find ourselves in those things. So in order to kind of push back on that and make sure our team is set up for success, is we just want to think about what is our purpose as a communication team here? What does success mean for us as a team? And then think about the content that aligns with that purpose, right? When you start to define that and you can do that, you're going to start to see as requests come through, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with the purpose that we defined here. Why are we doing it, right? We've got to think of ways. A big, huge trend is self-publishing areas of your intranet or communication
Yeah.
tools where people could just go up and user-generated content can go up there and post it themselves in a section that, makes sense for that type of content. But we really do need to identify things that we can pass on so we have more time for the stuff that counts.
And the way to do that is data. As Tarek and Cindy have been saying all day, if you have the data saying it doesn't work, get rid of it. And that's the keys to the kingdom. That first bucket is the key.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, then you can go to the next one and you have more time.
Exactly. And this is right where your writing formula comes into play. The right, what, now what? Published content is stuff that we definitely have to communicate. But, it doesn't require the storytelling. It doesn't require a lot of multimedia treatment, thinking about packaging. What it requires is people need to know it. So we need to get it out quickly, efficiently, in a very concise way, hopefully on technology that allows it to be searchable and easily accessible so people know where to go. And I know that that is a passion point of Tarek's right there, but that publish bucket, really important to identify the content that this is how we're going to treat it. So when it comes in, we get it done and we get it done right, right? So that's where we want to go with that one. And then the third one is that promote bucket. And that's why we're all here. This is what today is all about.
That's the fun stuff.
That's the baby, right? This is all the stuff where we want to influence behavior. We want to connect with people. We want to, help educate, motivate, inspire people. We want them to do things. It completely lines up with a purpose statement of why are we here? What does success mean for this team? And when you can identify you have to identify stuff in that pass bucket in order to have time to correctly create content in the publish and the promote buckets, right? That's why all of three of these things work together.
Yeah, Tarek, anything you want to add about that? Because I know that superior technology can help you do all these things. It can help you figure out what you should pass on. It gives you a publishing system to get that publish bucket out quickly, and then it gives you more time, I would think, to do the promote bucket.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So one of the things that we think about is everybody sends email. We know that will never change. What the consumer, though, behavior is really moving towards is this feed, like my news feed. So if you Google News, Apple News, it is tailored to you, which is a great concept. And that's part of what we do within broadcast is there's a news feed per employee. So the communicator, this is where it gets to be really a change in thinking. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but the communicator can publish content and they can say, you need to see this, right? You need to see the message from the CEO. This is not optional. Unlike Netflix, it's kind of a marketing thing. This is internal. You need to know about open enrollment. You need to know about quarterly earnings. Those are front and center, top of the fold for all your employees based on how you target. But then the other piece, which is really cool, is what do I want to know as a human being? So when I talk to communicators, I always ask them, would you say you're successful if your employees are both informed and engaged? And they say, yes. If I had 100% of my employees that knew what they were supposed to know and were engaged with the things they cared about, it's a home run. The problem is, how do we do that at scale? And that's where technology really can change the game and bring the consumer grade experience that you know and love. And Zach and I are both youthful. We're just entering the workforce, so he can relate to what I'm saying.
Yep.
That is what he expects, right? That is what he has grown up with. And we as an organization need to continue delivering what especially our younger workers like Zach and I know outside of the workforce or outside of the organization. So yes, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit, actually.
Yeah, you know what? When I first launched my first workshop 25 years ago, it was called Strategic Employee Publications, and it was print. And I had stacks of print publications, and I would make slides, old-fashioned slides. And my main message was, you got to get closer to what they're seeing in the regular media. The writing, the quality of the writing, how it looks, how it feels. And the corporate world was so different. And that's why those workshops are so popular. Now it's changed to the content still has to be good, but you also have to do what Tarek said and what Zach said about writing for the mobile and all. You have to mirror what people are used to in the real world.
Yep.
And too often that gap between the real world and the corporate world is way too big. So Cindy's going to talk a little bit, and Tarek is going to talk a little about the right tool. So we gathered our data, we improved our content, we have a plan to prioritize our content. We're using our time wisely. Now we got to put the right tools in place. That's number 4.
Exactly. And Tarek, you kind of touched on this right at the very beginning of our conversation here, but I cannot tell you how many times I hear in focus groups when we start talking about where do you go to rely on, what do you rely on the most to get your news, your company updates, understand what's happening in your organization. I can't tell you how many times I hear, I don't even know where to go anymore. It's just everywhere. Like, and that anxiety, it is a real thing. You do feel it. You hear it in people's voices and their responses because they feel like they easily are missing out on something because they just don't know where to go first, right? So again, part of that planning process and helping yourselves be a more proactive versus reactive is you got to clean house. You got to look at your channels. What do you have at your disposal? What are the powers that you have? You know, each channel should have its own purpose. Should have its own strengths that you really want to play to. Some content works better on some channels than other channels. More importantly, sometimes your audiences are only using some channels versus other channels. You got to know this. We've got to get out of the habit of taking one piece of content, writing it one way, and then pasting it across every single channel that we own. We really do have to think about it. Again, if you compare it to the consumer world, that would never happen, right? There's a reason why billboards are billboards and they're written the way that they're written versus going on and getting an email campaign in your inbox, right? So take a look at your channels. What we love to do with clients as we go through a channel audit with them is let's group them by the function that is really meaningful as a communicator, right? Whether it's a collaboration tool, are people there working together? Do you have this concentrated, targeted audience that is really honed in on specific topics that will help you guide your content, how you talk to them, what you talk to them about?
Like teams, right?
Yep, exactly. Social participatory. This is really popular these days, thank God, but places where people can upload their own content. Can they like something? Can they put a comment in there? Can they award somebody a badge? Really think about that and the power that that specific tool and that functionality can give your content. News announcements and alerts. You know, this is, again, that publish bucket. Things people really do need to know. It might not be the most exciting content that we're putting together, but this is the stuff that people feel like, hey, I'm connected, I'm informed. They value me because they keep me in the loop. That's the message that is sent when that content is done really well. Mobile friendly, Zach talked about this earlier. What content or what channels do we have that will allow a mobile friendly content that people can use and see wherever they might be, whether it's frontline employees who aren't in front of a computer all day, younger workforce, whatever the case may be. We need to identify which channels give us that flexibility. And then finally, which ones also allow us to think about packaging in different ways to tell a story, upload a video, use infographics, a cool photo, whatever the case may be. So go through all of your channels, start to identify them as to what powers each one of them has. If you create, this is the most simple version of it, a little chart that at a glance, again, the purpose of this in a communication plan is to look at a glance. If I have a certain type of content, where can I go to get the best bang for my buck? The next step I'd love to do on this is overlay it with where my audiences are, where my audience segments are, what they use, what I know they use. It gives you an at a glance snapshot of what do we do with our content once we create it.
I just love like really practical tips from Steve and Cindy. So anyone can do kind of those, and you should be doing those. How we think about it though, from a technology perspective, is how would that consumer grade experience transform how you communicate? So when we show this slide to people, draws so many questions because it's so different than how we've thought about communicating. But then they quickly get to the end and they say, but that's how I'm treated as a consumer. So let me walk you through a brief example. So if I needed to communicate out this HR policy update to senior VPs and above in North America, how I would do it normally is I hope the distribution list is A, exists, and B, is up to date. I create an email, probably an Outlook, probably doesn't look very good. I hit send. I hope they open it. I may or may not have analytics. I don't know. Maybe I have to set a calendar reminder to go back to the people that didn't acknowledge that they've seen it. It is so much work. And then we're saying, well, why don't communicators create great content? Is like, are you kidding? They don't have any time. That's how they do it today. And how we think about it is different. Instead of hitting send, you create content and you hit publish. It's added to a repository. That repository is there. It's like the Netflix library. And when anyone that this is targeted to, so I'm a senior VP and above in North America, I go to any connected channel, that content is waiting for me because it's building a news feed for me in real time. Since I'm a senior VP and above in North America and I haven't seen that, that's my lead story. You need to see this. And let's say I see it in Teams. Great. When I go to the intranet, that's no longer my lead story. I have seen this. We don't push them to a channel. Netflix doesn't push me to a channel. They don't care where I watch Netflix. Phone, TV, whatever, laptop, doesn't matter. And so it's the same concept here. And here's where it gets to be, I think, amazing. You hit publish and it's targeted to senior VPs and above. What happens to the person that's promoted to be a senior VP tomorrow or is hired in as a senior VP next week? How will they ever see that email? With this, it automatically routes to them because you meet the criteria and you have not seen this. And we don't care what channel you go to. This is your news. So we think about, it's such a different way to think about communication. When we show this to communicators, where they get super excited is their content has unbelievable reach. Imagine writing a health and wellness story where it's got no expiration date. This is evergreen. Benefits of walking if you're working remotely kind of thing. And you hit publish. That content is automatically pushed to new people that have an interest in health and wellness. You don't have to do anything. It's just there for them. So you've created this great piece that you're super proud of. These employees will see this for years because it's automatically sent to them. Now, right, we give people like the juice back to be writing amazing content because you know it's going to live and live and live.
Love it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, it's so important to have that audience-centric mindset.
The modern audience.
Instead of channel-centric. I'm writing
Like
for
Zach and I can totally relate to this.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, we talk about in our workshops, you got to respect your audience, respect their time, respect their intelligence. And that's what great technology and great content, the combination of great technology and great content respects your audience. And that's what it comes down to. And the final step then is to measure your results.
Absolutely. And again, just kind of reiterating all of the points we have talked about already. This is yet another piece of content. Don't think of measurement like a Excel report. Think of it as a story. Think of it as content that you're creating. And please, please, please avoid the cookie cutter approach. I have seen dashboards and reports, measurement and research reports that look just like this. And it's not to say that what you're seeing on the screen right now is not important data, because it is incredibly important. Your communication team loves this data. Your executive team, if you show it to them, they don't care. They're going to look at you and say, okay, and so, like, is it good? Is 56,000 page views in August okay? Like, what are we comparing it to? What does that mean, right? We've got to tell a story with our data. And again, if we think about that measurement ahead of time as we're creating that content and focus on the behaviors we're trying to influence, it will help you tell your stories in the back end when all of your numbers come through. So this template, everyone's going to get a copy of this. It's just a template to really think about your measurement differently. Who do you want to report back to? Focus on your audience and think about your audience. What's important to them as far as telling your story about how communications has changed the needle? What did you learn from the last campaign? How is it going to influence your plan going forward and how the organization communicates going forward? Think about those stories and then think about the data that helps support those stories, right? So you can use this template. These are the typical categories that most people can use. Of course, encourage you to customize it and make it your own when you get it into your hands there.
And again, measurement could be a full day, but that's the basics. That's the basic structure.
Your
of it.
favorite days are full day measurement days.
Yeah, those are great days.
But this is typically what we see all the time. You know, if you want to go back and have a conversation with your leaders about a recent video that you may have put together to help communicate a new company priority strategy initiative, right? You just want to ask yourself, instead of just flopping out the Excel graphs and whatnot, along with a laundry list of stats, when you look at this, just content wise, if this was in a magazine, again, think that consumer style, you don't even know where to look, right? And it's not to say there's a lot of important information on this page right now. It's just we're not doing ourselves any favor. We're not telling that story. So you first ask yourself, what is the data telling us, right? And if you actually went word for word through these list of stats, basically it's telling us the leadership video was good, but it really was dependent on where our employees were. So again, stop creating one piece of content and pasting it everywhere thinking it's going to be good. We've got to really think of that audience first. So instead of telling the story like that, you really want to bring it to life, right? And so the ways that I do that is just to think, what was that one aha moment? What makes the difference about this leadership video? It was whether or not it went to our corporate support audiences or our frontline audiences, right? So this first chart is part of the story where at the very top, we say, okay, how did this leadership do in helping employees understand the strategy? First, let's take a look at the employees who use a computer for their daily work. We've got 40% of them. And then I take a look at the data that helps back this up. I'm not out here to tell people to forget about metrics. They are super important, but let's couple it with behavior. So to the left, we take a look at our metrics and we see who opened it and who viewed it out of the people who use a computer every day for work. With that, I couple it with a couple of survey questions that I wrote with the intention of measuring behavior. So I wanted their level of understanding of how much they understand what needs to be done to achieve our goals for this year. In addition to that, knowing that, how confident are you in our future, right? Did this leadership video really help them understand what we need to do? And are you confident in the direction that we're going in, right? So the very bottom point, I definitely use that what, so what, now what formula that Steve has already talked about in my data stories. You know, what did we learn? We learned that this video did a pretty damn good job in front of the people who were in front of a computer. They do understand. We've got great numbers of understanding and confidence, right? This is something that we can use going forward. This can affect our plan, our communication strategy going forward. But now let's take a look at that other audience segment, which is our frontline employees, which makes up the majority of our employee base, right? We have 60% in this organization working on the front lines. Well, just look at the visuals. Between the first one, Steve, if you flip up to down, look how much they drastically drop. Just because we're taking a look at that audience segment with the same questions, with the same metrics, how do they compare? This is the type of stories that tell your leaders, this is what we've learned. So yes, we created this amazing video, but how are we going to take that message and what you put in that video and customize it and target it to our offline employees? We've got to think differently. So again, just demonstrating visually, what's the difference? What's the aha moment? What are we learning? And then at the very bottom, helping them understand, what do we do with this? How do we change this going forward? What are our recommendations? It completely shifts the mindset of people in your organization as, here's Cindy, the communicator, just tell her what we need posted on the internet, or tell her we need an email and she'll send it, to Cindy, tell me about my audience. Help me get my message out. Help this work. Help this resonate. Counsel me on what the strategy should be to communicate to this specific audience about this specific message.
This was a real life story, by the way, and we had supervisors, we had a mobile component. They started showing the video during their 5-minute huddles.
Yeah, there are ways around it, right?
It was retail. It was a
Yeah.
retail outfit that you've heard of. They went out and did that, and the retail people, then the numbers went up, and we won. We won that one.
Absolutely.
So we started with data. We're going to end with data. And I think the whole reason people are attending this is they want to understand, how do I really get from here to there within my organization? And I have an example here. We track campaigns. An example might be open enrollment 2023 versus 2024. Here's the lift we saw. And we can do all of that for you, real-time analytics. All that's amazing, but it's not enough. That is not enough. What you have to do then is go the next step. And this is where communicators are so modest. They never take credit
So true.
for how they're actually driving business value. So if you knew that every additional person you had enroll in healthcare plan that year is worth X to the company because they retain for longer, you should take credit for that. Say, hey, between 2023 and 2024, and I can show you the data, we increased open enrollment by 8%, which equates to 172 people, which equates to, I don't know, $1 million. That is how
$1
people
million.
talk. I can't do it because everybody thinks I'm Dr. Evil already, but I'm going to. But yes, $1 million. And now when you go back and you say, hey, we also want to do a video next year. And you said last year, we basically saved you $1 million. You have data. You are strategic. You can get what you need, but it comes from, what are the business priorities and how can we help support the business get there? So yes, this is great, but even broadcast, which I love, of course, will not go the next step. You have to take this data, take it the next step. That kind of finishes the circle, no pun intended, on going from kind of reactive to proactive and strategic. All right. So we are almost at time. I want to make sure, and just in case there are any last minute questions, so I'll do some housekeeping.
We have a big announcement, so don't leave quite yet. We have a big announcement coming up.
Everybody's going to get a recording of this. Everybody's going to get the slides. We're going to send an email with the blog post recap. The Crescenzos have been so nice. They're going to do a free coaching package to one of you lucky attendees.
Yep. We're going to do the drawing this week, and we will let you know via email who won it. And it's fun. It's fun. You'll get more information about that. It's one of our most popular products. It's one-on-one or one-on-team coaching.
It's fun. It's
For
really fun.
Free, right?
Yes.
And we're going to include an internal communication strategy audit that Cerkl has put together, so that all will be in your wrap up. But we have a big announcement, 2 of them actually. So Steve, Cindy, do you want to talk about Strategy Studio? So
this is a 28-year-old dream of mine, because we've done thousands.
So is Zach.
It is Zach. It basically is Zach in a way. We've had thousands of people literally come through our workshops, and we always hear, how come you don't have a community, so a network where we can stay in touch with each other and keep learning from you? The problem is, yeah, that's great, because we have the content, we have the contacts, we have everything we need for a thriving, vibrant community of smart communicators learning from us, learning from each other. We learn from you. We'll share content. We do workshops. We do coaching. We have that. I've always wanted to do it. We never had the time. Zach joined 3 months ago, and he is spearheading this. Zach, you want to talk a little bit about it real quick? Because this is going to go live April 1st, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Some of you, if you follow us on LinkedIn or you subscribe to our newsletter, you might have seen. But yeah, as Steve just mentioned, we're starting it April 1st. We're super excited. It'll be a professional development space where we'll have all different forms of content talking about all things corporate comms, from the long-standing issues to the hot topics like AI and things of that nature. We'll have Tarek on our board of directors. So you might be seeing some more of him, which is
Don't
great.
let that dissuade you, by the
Yeah,
way.
that's
It's
he's
still
a
going to
small
be
part.
awesome.
Yeah, but no, it's going to be great. We're going to have all different forms of content like webinars like this, articles, videos, and then also open discussion forums. Because the key to this community is we want to hear from you, and you can share with your peers, learn and just connect with others. So we're really excited for it. We want to hear what you want in the community. So reach out to us if you have any suggestions as we kick this thing off.
Yeah, and April 1st is going to be the open house. Zach is running the whole thing behind the scenes. Cindy and I are creating tons of content for it that are
Absolutely.
It's going to be. It's not going to be shared anywhere else. We're gonna
It's a beautiful marriage of training and coaching all at the same time. It's such a cool
and
thing.
peer-to-peer learning.
Exactly.
It's going to be the place to be. And
Well,
that's
if you guys are behind it, then it's going to be great.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
And one thing we'll add, we have some questions too, if people want to stick around. I don't know if we can do that or not.
Yeah, for sure.
We have never done this. I've never done this. So this is our first kind of kickoff we want people to think differently about internal comms. We do as a technology provider. We're partnering with people that think differently. The Crescenzos certainly do. So we've never done this. We have everybody's email address, obviously, that registered. If you want to see more about what we do, 25% off new subscriptions. I know I feel like I'm selling knives. It's really cool. It's way better than the Ginsu knife. Check it out if you would like. And you get 25% off for new subscribers. With that, I think we have some questions if people want to stick around.
And just we don't partner with too many technology companies, but we partner with Tarek and Cerkl because we believe in the product. It's really it allows us. It fits in what we teach and allows people to do what we teach.
Absolutely.
Which is the battle. I can't see the Q&A, so I don't know if there's any questions.
This is a great one, Joy. I hope you're still on, and if not, I'll make sure this response gets emailed to you. But Steve, you're gonna like this. She asks, what are your thoughts on an internal communication focus on a manager-specific communication strategy? For frontline teams in particular, I've noticed that managers play a communication role and flag important dates in org-wide changes. So thinking about manager strategies and resources to enhance their skills in that area.
Joy,
Take it away, Steve.
It's the biggest, one of the biggest, hottest trends now since COVID really is the importance of that manager group as communication vehicles. And we did a workshop about 6 months ago called From Cascade to Conversations. The cascade method, which has been around for 50 years, starts at the top, goes to the next level, goes to the next level, and finally gets down to the unwashed masses down here. And by then the messages are distorted, there's bottlenecks, it doesn't work. And people don't want to just be cascaded upon anymore.
That's right.
So we have a workshop, and we have it on demand actually. You can go to our website. It's called From Cascade to Conversations, where you help your managers have real conversations with employees, not just dump stuff on them. And then you circle back, and it's a dialogue loop where it's the leaders to managers to employees, back to managers to leaders. And that's the new model. It's no longer enough to just push stuff out onto people and hope it cascades down and hope the managers do what you ask them to do, which half of them don't, unless they get the right kind of. You can't give a manager a big toolkit. These manager toolkits that are really robust and great and have PowerPoint and video, and they don't do anything with them. We do hundreds of manager focus groups. They just want simple things. They want it to be fast. They want to communicate. They want to do right by their teams, but it's got to be simple for them. So yeah, that's a big question, Joy. And I think that is shifting from that one-way cascade top-down model to more of a conversational model. And again, that can happen with technology. It can happen, face-to-face, obviously. But yeah, those managers are critical today, and they're squashed for time. They're getting it from both sides. Up here, leaders are saying, do more, do less, do more with less. Employees are saying, hey, I'm not getting enough information. So they're getting squeezed in the middle, and they need our help.
So they need help and just dedication. They are their own channel. They are their own. They need time. And too often we clump them in with everybody else. So a lot of great ideas in that workshop that we've got.
Any other Q&As coming in?
That is it. Lots of great compliments out there. Thank you so much. It does mean a lot to us. We're glad that so many of you found it so valuable. Please keep in touch for sure. It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Tarek, thanks for having us.
Yeah, Tarek, thank you for hosting this. This was awesome.
So yeah, this was, I knew it would be a treat, and you did not disappoint.
You either.
We will see all of you hopefully in the studio. It's the first month is free, by the way. April 1 to May 1st is free. So come on in, walk around, open house, meet people. It's going to be fun. It's going to be the place to be. So if you hit that barcode, what's it called? A barcode?
That's a QR code.
QR
Steve.
code.
Thanks for joining the current century.
QR code, or hit the link and go sign up. You'll be on the waiting list and you'll be welcomed in on April 1st, which with a whole bunch, you get slapped in the head with a bunch of great content.
Mike
younger-
Shaw, thanks for joining us from New Zealand.
Mike Shaw,
Yes.
New Zealand.
We love him. It's so good to see your name out there. That's awesome.
With that, thank you very much. That concludes our first thought leadership webinar. Thanks to Crescenzo Communication, always thought-provoking and entertaining.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you in the
Thank you.
studio.